Diva Tomboyish is in the house. That's right. Diva Tomboyish in the house. In the song. Came just in time. Welcome to the Diva Tomboys Show. Live and direct.
Hey guys, so sorry about that. Please excuse me. All right, so welcome back to the 30th anniversary of the OJ Simpson trial. Okay, 30 years ago. The reason why I'm choosing to go over this trial is because I was a like a small child. Like I don't remember any of it. I don't remember exactly you know I remember the Bronco and I covered that in the last episode that I did. I covered the chase, and if you remember it when you were small, the reason why I'm playing it over, you get to see it as a grown adult. And prior to that, when I did the introduction episode, we discussed all of the events that had taken place when it came to, um, the murders. All right. And so, just to go ahead and do an overview before I get started, because, like I said, I also am watching this and, for the first time since, in the 30 years. So, like I said, I remember it as a child. Um, but I want to review and hear and go over everything as a grown adult. Okay. So, we do know for a fact that Nicole Brown and her then boyfriend that she was seeing was murdered outside of her home. And before that, prior to that, um, Nicole was complaining about, being stalked and harassed, and going through domestic violence issues with her ex-husband or soon to be ex-husband, OJ Simpson. Okay. And so Nicole Brown and her boyfriend, Ronald Goldman, was found stabbed to death in front of her condo in California. So immediately, and that's in the second episode of the 30-year anniversary trial that I'm doing, um, immediately OJ Simpson became the primary suspect. Now, the preliminary hearing I kind of watched on my own to be able to get up to the point where as though I am here now to go over the trial as a grown adults. And in the preliminary hearing, of course, various things are discussed by the prosecutors and then the defense to determine whether or not the evidence and things that were being brought forth to the state was enough to be able to carry this to trial. And from all the evidence that was being brought forth, when I got a chance to watch, it was long. The preliminary hearing went on for a couple of months. Um, the trial started. Let's see here. Um, yeah, the trial, I'm so sorry, the preliminary hearing ended about July the 8th. Okay. So it ended around July the 8th. And so it was about months after the murders. And they found out that they in fact had enough to be able to go to trial. They spoke to the place where OJ Simpson had purchased his knife. And they spoke to the owner. They spoke to Ronald Goldman, um, his employer, the boss. Like, it was just very interesting to see, various people that they spoke upon, and some forensics. And so they got enough of the trial. So I'm gonna go ahead because I don't want, it to go over an hour. Even though what we're going to be viewing today, the reason why I skipped up to an hour, as you can see, an hour and 3 minutes, is because during this time, it's just the courts just preparing. You see OJ there, you see the prosecutors, the defense, speaking with the judge on various things that was going to be utilized. As you can see, that's the judge there, the presiding judge. Oh my God, let me give you his name. Well, I have that there. OJ Simpson Trial judge. I keep forgetting it. And I'm not going off any notes. I'm freestyling. So, all right. So Lance Allen Ito, I think it's pronounced Ito. A lot of people said he, had a lot of things to say about that judge. Like I said, I don't remember. I was too young, but now I get to revisit his personality as a grown adult. That is the prosecuting attorney. That's also the prosecuting attorney, but she was the main one there. Okay, I read up on her, and she hasn't changed. She's aging gracefully after 30 years. All right, so just to get you up to the point, there's OJ. During the whole preliminary hearing, he was bored. Okay, OJ was ready to go home. He was rolling his eyes and everything. Johnny Cochran, all right, he has gone on, but I'm excited to hear his argument. So they're basically, and I know I'm using the wrong legal terminology of introducing themselves. There you'll see OJ Simpson's mother, God rest her soul. Okay, he adored his mother. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it at the point of, because I want to get to the point where as though the trial began. Okay. And get a look at all the old computers. I get a kick out of that. All the old computers. And the reason why I'm playing it this low is because I don't know why, but when I put up, hey to everybody in the chat, hey, pumpkin pie. Okay, hey Scooby. Stay tuned. Okay. I get to look at all the computers and stuff back in the day. I like the outfits and all that stuff. So I'm mad excited right here. This is OJ. Okay. Oh, the reason why I'm not going to extend it is because it begins to gorge. For some odd reason, StreamYard hates me, so I have to leave it low like this. So if you wear glasses, if you wear glasses, put them on. If you just listen to me just to tune in, that's fine as well. But I have to play it like this to get a clear picture, and I'll fix it later. I don't know. His lordship has been abandoning me lately, so he can't help me because he just stalks me from the bushes instead of coming out. Okay, he's a tourist, so he's when he feels like it, he feels like a child. So I just gotta wait till that opportunity come up so I can ask for some help. Okay, but until then, we just gotta watch it little like this. Um, this is OJ Simpson's family on the side here. So they're going to zoom in and then we're going to start from there together. Please let me know, guys, if it's like an echo or anything like that. I'm going to be letting it roll. Okay, I'm not going to stop. You probably hear me saying little things, but like I said, we're reviewing this together as grown adults. All right, let's let it rip. It's no sound right now. Okay, that's OJ Simpson's family. That's his oldest daughter. Okay, she's so pretty. You might see her on videos. They look stressed out, right? She's 50 something now, and she's aging gracefully. I looked her up. Right, so that's his family. As you can see, his daughter has his attitude, has his attitude. There's OJ Simpson's mother. They absolutely adore him. Okay, and you can just tell they absolutely adore him. But God rest her soul. But they all in the building. You're gonna see Goldman's parents. I'm not sure who that is, but I think that's Goldman's sister, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm so sorry.
We'll
That's
stand in
Nicole
recess
Brown's
until
sister.
10:30, and we will begin opening statements at 10:30. All right, Deputy Jex, we need the jury, please.
That's Nicole Brown's sister. All right, so they said they're going to begin at 10:30 with opening statements, so we get to hear. Of course, that's the most exciting part when they begin to present their case, and closing is also good too. So I definitely had to get the opening. There's the tough judge that everybody is taught. I can't wait to view to see how his character is because people are still talking about him to this very day and his firm um, speaking, his straightforwardness. He didn't come to play, from what I heard.
All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. Mr. Simpson is again present before the court with
There's
his
the
counsel,
dream
Mr.
team.
Shapiro, Mr. Ullman, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Bailey, people represented by Ms. Clark, Mr. Darden, and Mr. Hodgman. The jury is not present. Deputy Magnero, may we have the jury, please?
There's Mr. Shapiro, the lead attorney, and they're having Johnny Cochran handle the litigation part of things as far as presenting the argument in court. You was in junior high. I was in elementary. Child. Okay, so you are older than me. I was way too young to remember this. So I don't want to skip too far because I don't want to miss anything. Okay, so opening arguments. I just get a kick out of the hairstyles. There's OJ. There go the juice. There go the juice. He's surrounded by the top attorneys in California at
All right,
that
counsel in
time.
the audience, please be seated.
Look at Johnny.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to begin with the opening
Coco, is
statements
everything
made
clear?
by the lawyers in the
Can you
case.
see
Let me
the clear
remind
picture?
you from my instructions
Any
to
echo
you
or anything?
yesterday that any statements made to you by the attorneys during the course of their opening statements are not evidence and should not be considered as such by you. These opening statements are normally given by the attorneys to sort of give you an overall view of the evidence that they intend to present. It's to give you a roadmap, so to speak, as to how to evaluate the evidence. This case, as you know, will be relatively long, and by necessity, some of this evidence will be presented to you out of chronological or logical order. So they'll need to explain to you the case that they intend to present. All right, are both sides prepared to go forward, Mr. Cochran?
We are, Your Honor.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
All right, do the people wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, we do.
All right, you may proceed. Mr. Darden? Thank you.
Your Honor, Judge Ito, Mr. Cochran,
Ito.
Mr. Shapiro, and Dean Ullman, to my colleagues seated here today in front of you,
These are
to the real parties
the
in interest in
prosecutors,
this
guys.
case, the Brown family, the Goldman family, and the Simpson family. And to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning.
Hey.
I think it's fair to say that I have the toughest job in town today,
No shit.
except for the job that you have. Your job may just be a little bit tougher, but your job, and like my job, both
Guys,
have a
we're the
central
jury,
focus,
okay? He's talking to us.
a single objective, and that objective is justice, obviously.
Can I zoom in?
It's going to be a
It's
long
gonna make me
trial,
bored.
and I want you to know how much we appreciate your being on the panel. We appreciate the personal sacrifices you're making by being sequestered. We understand that can be difficult. And I'd like to thank you in advance for keeping the promises you made to us when you were selected for the jury initially. You promised to be fair. You promised to be open-minded.
Yes, help me out
You
here,
promised to
Triple.
hear and see and carefully consider all the evidence in the case.
I'm freestyling.
And you promised to find this case, to come to a verdict in this case solely on the basis of the evidence and the law given to you by Judge Ito. And you promised to do that based on the law, based on the facts and the evidence, and nothing else. You promised us that you had no hidden agenda, that you only wanted to see justice done. And you promised us that you would do everything you could under the law to see that justice was done. And so I thank you for that, and I thank you in advance for the verdict you will at some point render in this case.
You're welcome.
And we're here today, obviously, to resolve an issue, to settle a question that has been on the minds of people throughout the country these last 7 months. It certainly has been on the mind of my people up in Richmond, California, and friends in Fayetteville, Georgia, and all across the country. And everybody wants to know, and everybody I know often posed the question to me,
did he kill her?
did OJ Simpson
and Ronald
really kill Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman?
Right.
Well, finally, ladies and gentlemen, I am here in front of you this morning to answer that question.
What's the answer?
And we'll answer that question from the witness stand
Mm-hmm.
and from the exhibits you'll see in this case and from the evidence. And when you see the evidence and when you hear the witnesses and when you put it all together and consider the totality of circumstances in this case, the answer will be clear to you as well. The answer to the question is yes.
Ooh,
The evidence will show that the
brother.
answer to the question is yes.
Okay, so he did it. Okay,
O.J.
we'll be
Simpson
waiting.
murdered
We'll
Nicole
see for
Brown
ourselves.
and Ronald Goldman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you'll be wondering why as the trial proceeds on. And I'm sure you're wondering why right now. As the judge instructed you already, opening statements are not evidence. Opening statements are given by lawyers. And in an opening statement, we inform the jury of what we think the evidence will show in this case. What we believe the evidence will show.
Hey, y'all,
But
listen,
we're
we're
lawyers.
the jury.
We're not
We
witnesses.
can't talking.
We're not under oath. Nothing we say is evidence. The things we say to you today
Look at Rob Kardashian right
are
there.
not the things that you should carry into the jury room and into deliberations. You should carry into the jury room and into your deliberations the evidence in the case, the testimony from the witness stand, the exhibits admitted at trial, the instructions given to you by the court. And when you look at all of that, when you go back and reflect on the testimony and the exhibits and everything you heard and saw in this case, you'll know why he killed Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman.
He didn't. A brother. You see that?
And when I give you the answer as I have, you consider and you stop and consider and you think, why would he do it? Why would he do it? Not OJ Simpson, not the OJ Simpson we think we know, not the OJ Simpson we've seen over the years. But that raises another question, and that question is, do you know OJ Simpson? We've seen him play football for USC. We watched him thrash UCLA and play in the Rose Bowl. We watched him win the Heisman Trophy. He may be the best running back in the history of the NFL. We watched him leap turnstiles and chairs and run to airplanes in the Hertz commercials. And we watched him with a 50-inch afro and Naked Gun 33.5. And we've seen him time and time again.
That's my movie. But you're saying he killed her.
We came to think that we know him. What we've been seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is the public face, the public persona,
Mm-hmm.
the face of the athlete, the face of the actor.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the actor who is on trial here today, ladies and gentlemen. It is not that public face.
Okay, so who on trial?
It is
A
his
good
other
brother.
face.
That's what you're
Like
saying.
many men in public,
Mm-hmm.
like many public men, they have a public image, a public persona,
Mm-hmm.
a public side, a public life,
Mm-hmm.
and they also have a private side, a private life, a private face.
Okay. So what's wrong with
And that
that?
is the face we will expose to you in this trial.
Well, then that won't make
The
it
other side of
private.
OJ
You see
Simpson.
this here, y'all?
The side you've never met before.
Mm-mm.
We will expose in this trial and show to you in this trial that other face, the face he wore behind the locks and the gates and the walls at Rockingham.
Mhm.
That other face, the one that Nicole Brown encountered almost every day of her adult life. The one she encountered during the last moments of her adult life.
For the money.
The
Don't
same
be that
face.
loud. Okay?
Ronald Goldman encountered during the last moments of his life. When we look upon and look behind
Give me
that
some
public
to
face, the public face of the man who sits here in court today, you'll see a different face. And the evidence will show that the face you will see and the man that you will see will be the face of a batterer, a wife beater, an abuser, a controller. You'll see the face of Ron's and Nicole's murderer. To understand what happened at Bundy, we need to examine this defendant's relationship with Nicole. Because when we do, we can discern from that. We can see a motive. We can see his motive for killing his ex-wife. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that as the trial proceeds on, and as you hear the evidence in this case, that motive will become clear. He killed Nicole for a single reason. Not because he hated her. He didn't hate Nicole. He didn't kill her because he didn't love her anymore, because in his mind, he did. He killed her for a reason almost as old as mankind itself. He killed her out of jealousy. He killed her because he couldn't have her. And if he couldn't have her, he didn't want anybody else to have her. He killed her to control her. Control is a continuing theme. It was a continuing theme. The central focus of their entire relationship. By killing Nicole, this defendant assumed total control over her. By killing her, he committed the ultimate act of control. By killing her, no one else could have her. No one but him. And he killed Ron Goldman. And he killed Ron Goldman for another reason. He killed Ron Goldman because he got in the way. He killed Nicole because he had a problem with her, as men and women sometimes do have in relationships. They have a problem. And this defendant's problem, the man in the courtroom, I think he stated his problem rather eloquently at his weight, as he stood over her body at his weight. And he said then, and he said on other occasions, and I quote, he said, while standing over that casket, while standing over Nicole's body, My problem was that I loved you too much. But it wasn't really love, ladies and gentlemen. And this will be reflected in the evidence, and the evidence will establish this, that it wasn't really love. What this defendant had for Nicole Brown wasn't love, it was obsession. He became obsessed with her. And his obsession was so great that he developed a need to control her. And his need to control and his feelings of obsession, his obsession was so great that when he came to realize that he could not keep her, he killed her. Because to let her go would mean to lose control of her. To let her go with Ron Goldman or someone else would mean to lose control. He couldn't have her. And neither could anyone else. Now, the evidence in this case will establish that the man in the courtroom, this defendant, is an extremely controlling and possessive man. And as I said before, control and possessiveness was a single dominant theme throughout their relationship. And he controlled her in a variety of ways. He controlled her financially. When the defendant and Nicole first met, she was barely 18 years old. He was almost 30. She shared an apartment. He owned a mansion. She waited tables at a restaurant. He was a millionaire. No one had ever heard of Nicole Brown, but he was one of the most recognized men in America. But after he met her, he slowly began to control her. She shared an apartment with a friend. He got her own apartment. He bought her things. He gave her things. The time she was 19, she was driving a Porsche. He got it for her. He began to gain control over her. And throughout the years, throughout their relationship, he maintained that economic control over her, that financial control. The evidence will show that Nicole never really held a job. She never really worked. She never really operated a business. She never had an income really of her own. Throughout her entire adult life, this man, the defendant in the courtroom, held the purse strings in her life. Whatever money she got, whatever material possessions she got from the defendant. People can sometimes be bought. And young people sometimes can be easily misled. Nicole was a very young woman, if a woman at all, when she first met this defendant, the man seated in the courtroom. And as the years went on, and as they continued to date, and as he gained more and more control over her, the more control he gained, the more abusive he became. As you listen to the evidence in this case, and you're going to be hearing evidence regarding domestic abuse, domestic violence, stalking, intimidation, physical abuse, wife beating, public humiliation. As you listen to the trial and as you hear this evidence and see this evidence, please keep in mind that all of these different kinds of abuse were all different methods to control her. Let me proceed on. The evidence will show in this case that he abused her mentally. He stripped her of her self-esteem. This defendant dictated the way Nicole would dress. He dictated the way she would wear her hair. And when he didn't like her appearance, he would criticize her, he would humiliate her to the point that she would cry. If he didn't like her shoes, he'd go out and buy shoes. This is what I want you to wear. Wear this, look like this. She was not a Barbie doll, ladies and gentlemen. The evidence would show that he was so controlling that he attempted to define her identity. He attempted to define who she was. When she was pregnant and put on weight, the evidence would show that this defendant was so abusive that he called her names. He called her fat. He called her a pig. And he did this in the presence of her family and in the presence of her friends. And he humiliated her. And that is the face we intend to expose in this trial. That's the other side of this defendant we're going to show you in this trial. And by doing these things and by hurling these insults, he stripped her of her self-esteem. And when you're controlling someone financially, and when they have no self-esteem, and when they have no identity, you have them. You control them. The evidence will show that this defendant, this man in the courtroom, was a very controlling and possessive man. And that the dominant theme throughout their relationship was his control of Nicole Brown. But he did more. He did more than just demean her in the presence of others. He attempted to isolate her, sometimes from some people. When certain men came around, he became jealous. And he became so jealous that it got to the point that she would not agree or want to be around certain men because she was concerned that he might get jealous by their mere presence. And as time went on, and as he became jealous, and more jealous, he even insisted that she not be around certain men. He began to isolate her, ladies and gentlemen. When her friends came around, her girlfriends came around, and when he felt that she was spending too much time with those girlfriends, he talked to the girlfriends. He let them know he didn't like them hanging around. He dissuaded her girlfriends from hanging around. He attempted to isolate her from other people. And when you isolate someone, and when you have economic control over someone, and when you strip someone of their self-esteem, and when you establish their identity, you have them. They're yours. You can control them. And the evidence would show in this case that this man is an extremely possessive and controlling individual, and that he is an extremely obsessive individual when it came to Nicole. And his obsession was manifested by the things he did toward controlling her, for demeaning her and controlling the purse strings and isolating her and defining who she would see and who she wouldn't see and who her friends would be and who they would not be, wasn't all this defendant did to control this woman. There are more powerful forms of control. There's force. There's violence. There's fear. There's intimidation. And you will hear testimony. You will see evidence that in his quest to control Nicole, this defendant used all these things. He used fear. He used intimidation. And he used violence. And he instilled such a fear in her, ladies and gentlemen. She heard testimony that he could walk into a room. He could walk into a room, and Nicole would be there. And a moment before he walked in, she would just be the most charming individual there is, relaxed. But when he walked in, her demeanor changed completely. As time went on, his mere presence became intimidating to her. I mentioned earlier that they met when she was around 18 years old back in 1977, and they dated for 8 years, and they eventually married in 1985. And the marriage was a stormy marriage, and it was a marriage punctuated by acts of violence. And that violence would always be followed by an apology. He would apologize, give her jewelry, buy her flowers. He would promise to do better. Promise to maintain control of himself.
All right, let me go ahead and just say this just while listening to this, because I'm really, really listening. And I hope you guys are as well, to understand as to, we all know the ending of the verdict. But as a grown adult, I'm sitting and I'm listening to the prosecutors present their case. And first of all, yes, she was barely 18, but she was working in a bar. She was working in a bar where you know, men that were rich. I mean, places where an OJ Simpson would be hanging at, and she's barely 18 years old, right? So while the prosecution is bringing that forth, if I was watching this back in the day, yes, she was a waitress. But what kind? Was she a cocktail waitress? Working 18 years old, it doesn't matter whether this was 1962. She wasn't old enough to drink, especially in that state. So to be a cocktail waitress or just a waitress and around all of these prestige rich men, that goes to show you, you know, what we're dealing with here. Um, Especially having a mother or father that she was extremely close with. So some parents do raise their children to raise, I'm so sorry, to marry rich men. Okay. So not taking it personal, but just being on the end of where the jurors were. If I was a juror, I would definitely be thinking that in my mind. Okay. She was so what miserable. And don't forget, when we introduced this 30th anniversary that we're doing over here, we heard from her family. So supposedly she was very close with them, and she did share some times where it was some abuse. And but what we do also know is that he helped out with her father's business. We do know that OJ Simpson during this time was worth around 70 million during that time. He was America's sweetheart, the hero. Do you understand? So just some things to look at and just to share what, you know, just to give some commentary of my thoughts thus far, just listening. It's very deep, and I'm enjoying this so much. Hey, to everybody that came in and are you know, giving how their opinions in the chat. I'm welcome to, you know, hearing everybody's view. You know, I'm going to also do a show after the because this is going to be split up. I want to hear from you guys. You know, if you want to hit the link and tell me what you think, and after viewing it 30 years later for being a child, let me know. If you are a grown adult, let me know your feelings then and what your feelings can be possibly now, 30 years later. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get back into the show. I mean, the trial here.
And he would promise not to do it again. And then those acts of violence would be followed by additional acts of violence, and it became a cycle. Violence, apologies, a period of quiet and calm, then violence and apologies, quiet and calm, violence, apologies, quiet, calm, A cycle of violence characterized their relationship. It characterized their marriage. And domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen, that's a difficult topic, because domestic violence is something that happens behind the gates and the walls. It happens in the bedroom and inside the home and in places where the public can't see. Domestic violence is a private affair, generally, while it's occurring. And so it makes it difficult to obtain evidence, to gain proof that the violence occurred. And it makes it difficult to obtain evidence and gain proof that the relationship is a violent relationship. But we do have that proof. We do have proof. We do have evidence. You will hear testimony from witnesses in this case, and they will discuss the violent relationship, the violent marriage this defendant had with Nicole Brown. In 1985, the police responded to the defendant's home in Rockingham in response to a call. And when they arrived, they were met by Nicole. She was crying. She was upset. And her face was puffy. She was near hysterics. She told these people, she said, we had a fight. After the fight, I was trying to leave. And when I tried to leave, the defendant grabbed the baseball bat, and he took that baseball bat and smashed the windshield to my car. This is 1985. And as they looked around, these law enforcement officers, they looked to the right and they saw a white 450 SL Mercedes-Benz. And the windshield was smashed out. And just then the defendant came out of the house. And he offered an explanation. Well, the police didn't arrest him. They left. They left Nicole there. They left the defendant there. And that isn't an act of physical violence toward Nicole, is it? Or is it? Maybe it is. Nicole Brown was there to witness this act, this violence on her vehicle. And if you're married to someone and you love someone and you have a fight with them and they take a baseball bat and they do something like that to one of your prized possessions, could it be that they're sending a message? The evidence will show that this was a message. It was an indication. It was a warning as to what would happen next. It was a warning that what happened to this Mercedes-Benz could just as well happen to you. And it did happen to Nicole. Not with the baseball bat, but just like that Mercedes got smashed and dented, so did Nicole. You'll be hearing evidence. You'll be hearing testimony. You'll be seeing witnesses in this case regarding an incident that happened on January 1, 1989. It was almost 4 o'clock in the morning on January 1st when the 911 operator received a telephone call from Rockingham. And that operator will be here to testify in court. And that operator will be here to authenticate the tape of that 911 call from Rockingham. And when the operator appears and when the tape is played, listen very carefully. because if you listen carefully, in the background, you will hear a woman screaming. And you'll hear something else. You will hear the sound of this defendant, this man, beating this woman. You will hear the sound of his hand smacking across her face. You will hear the sound of this defendant beating his wife. Well, the police arrived. They arrived at Rockingham in response to that telephone call. And Nicole never got to tell the 911 operator to come and help me or anything like that. All she did was scream, and the operator could hear her screaming, and the operator could hear her being beaten. And she advised LAPD units to respond to 360 North Rockingham. We can hear the sound of a woman being beaten now, right now. And the officers arrived at Rockingham a short time later. And when they did, they rang the buzzer to the security gate. And as they did so, they saw someone run from the bushes, run from the darkness in their direction. And this person that they saw was Nicole. And Nicole came running out of the darkness, wearing nothing but sweatpants and a bra, running toward the officers. And she was covered with mud, and she was dirty, and she was filthy. And she ran toward the officers. And as she ran toward the officers, she was shouting and yelling, "He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me." And the officer stood there. They didn't know what to do. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. She's out in her bra, sweatpants, and covered with mud. They just got a call. There's a woman in Rockingham being beaten now. She comes running out of the darkness and out of the mud and out of the bushes. And she pushes a button to the security gate, and she runs through the gate, and she collapses in the arms of the officer. The entire time she's yelling, "He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me." And the officer said, Who's going to kill you? And she said, "OJ is going to kill me." And the officers looked. They looked at her. Her eye was swollen, bruised. Her lip was cut. One of the officers, the senior officer there, he looked at her neck. And what he saw startled him.
And let's look at it from different angles, right? So even though we're looking at it more on OJ's side, let's look at it on the other side too. Imagine being in a relationship with someone that's considered America's sweetheart, the hero. Everybody loves him. You got a police department that's predominantly males. And what do males like or love? Football. So, he's in movies at this time. So imagine how Nicole probably felt that every single time he would knock her upside her head, according to what's being presented, the cops sweep it underneath the rug. She loses automatically because this is OJ. So imagine how she probably felt. And you probably got some jurors that were like, what you mean he controlling? What you mean that, he got jealous, this and the other. Let me tell you something. And you might have some jurors that are saying, okay, so OJ was controlling and he could have had any woman that he wanted. Yeah, OJ could have had any woman that he wanted. OJ could have slept with and had children with, anybody that he wanted. And so you probably had some people who are sitting there in the jurors that are like, I don't believe it. Not OJ. And during this time, this is his prime. And you probably have some people that she was venting to, she was reaching out to, and they were like, honey, come on now. Kris Jenner, don't forget, they were friends. you know? And I'm pretty sure that, Shapiro, his wife, um, Rob Kardashian, um, they all were tight. They all used to go out and vacation and stuff together. Okay, so they're not just his attorneys; they're his friends. You think they don't know that? But men in power actually, like, they could be secure too. Men in power, in my opinion, their egos are very, very fragile. You get what I'm saying? Um, they might be secure, but um, and I'm not a man, so I can't tell you. But I do know when a man in business feel disrespected, like, people that have these, big positions and stuff like that. If you disrespect them too much, their ego gets fragile. Like, who the fuck you talking to? Like, you know what I'm saying? Um, I believe any man, whether it's a man of power, a man who just have a regular job, a man that's a rich man and a broke man. I believe, because men aren't emotional creatures, I believe that when they fall in love and they begin to trust you, then they can become a little bit jealous. You get what I'm saying? I think that that's normal. Men are territorial. Once they mark their property, it's their fucking property. That's how they look at it. Now you might have a motherfucker that's just psychotic to the point where it's so, bitch, I'll kill you before I sit back and watch you fucking with somebody else or having somebody around my children. You can experience men like that. Especially powerful motherfuckers. Even studying the royals as I do. Everybody knows I love the royals. When you marry into the royal family, if you notice, even if the relationship did not work out um, with the prince or the princess, usually that individual stays single. They do not go off to have other children. They do not go off to get married or have boyfriends and stuff like that. King Charles's brother, Andrew, um, married Fergie. Okay, around the same time, she was best friends with Diana, Princess Diana. Well, Fergie had kids for Prince Andrew, and she did cheat, and she suffered greatly for that. But Fergie never got married, never had any other kids, and still to this day, she makes herself available to Prince Andrew um, when he feels like putting up with her. Okay. Do you see what happened once Princess Diana was moving forward? Do you see what happened? So listen, I mean, it could be considered a conspiracy or anything you want to. I deep down believe that the more powerful the man is, once he begins to love you or trust you enough to want to have offspring with you and give you his heart and stuff like that, it's considered like shaming the man when you move on to something else, because the reason why it fucks with their ego is because I am the best. That's how they look at it. And at this time, OJ is like, I'm the best. I'm OJ. I'm the juice. You see what I'm saying? I'm Prince Charles. What the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? You can't get no better than the Queen's. Like, I'm Prince Charles. What are you doing? You're dating someone else. You're sleeping with someone else. You're gonna marry someone else. How does that make Prince Charles look? Right? Because anybody on the outside looking in saying you're not good enough, even as the prince. Right? So in this situation, I do think, and that's just my opinion, and that's something that we could further research on. We could look at some very powerful men that's in the industry, as no matter where they are, and see how they put up with divorce. Do you understand that? And then how it affected them to the point where, so look at Kanye West. Even though Kim Kardashian has moved forward and stuff like that, he drove That other guy, the guy that was after him, insane. He trolled him so bad on the internet that he had to go to the mental institution. Powerful men are nuts. Like, seriously. So it's just always better to be prepared for that. And I think that if the mothers are raising, because we can look at this at all angles, if the mothers are raising their children to marry the rich and the powerful, maybe they should suggest, hey, if it's not working out, whatever you do, just be prepared to be single. I mean, seriously. And during this time, Nicole's children were minors. So I could kind of get what he's for. What man wants another man around his daughter and son at a young age? So, in my opinion, I'm not knocking anybody's hustle, but you're going to raise a child, and this is my philosophy, to become a powerful rich man's wife or husband. Let them know, listen, if you get in and you're married to rich, and if he likes you and falls in love with you, if it don't work out, they're men. They're going to play around. They can remarry. They can do whatever they want to, but you can't. Or this is what's going to happen. You're going to get Nicole Brown. That's just my outlook on it. Okay. We're going to watch a little bit more. Then we're going to come back and then do a little bit more, probably in about an hour. All right. I got my food here. I'm trying to eat at the same time, but it's not working out because I'm really focused on these short ribs I made yesterday. So I got to be all in. All right. Let's watch a little bit more.
On her neck, you could see the imprint of a hand. The imprint of a hand around her neck. Well, it was then that the defendant came out of the house. He was wearing nothing but his bathrobe. And he did not address his wife at the time. And he did not ask the police how she was doing or if she was okay. And what the evidence will show and what you will hear in this case is that he demeaned and humiliated her even more. He shouted to the officers in the presence of Nicole, his wife, "I've got two women now. I don't need that one. I don't want that one in my bed anymore." This was his wife, and this is what he said to these officers who were strangers to him. This is what he shouted out to the police. The officers were on one side of the gate of the wall, and the defendant at that time was on the other side. The officer said, "Mr. Simpson, we're going to have to place you under arrest. It appears that your wife has been beaten. So please go back into the house and put on some clothes and come with us. We're going to take you to the station." Well, the evidence would show that that did not sit well with this defendant. And he responded, "The police have been here 8 times before. And now you're going to arrest me for this? 8 times. That's what the defendant said. The police had been there 8 times before. And as he said, "You're going to arrest me for this?" The defendant told the officers, "This is a family matter." That's what the evidence would show. The defendant said to the officers, "This is a family matter." And he asked, "Why do you want to make such a big deal out of it? We can handle it." The evidence would show that the officers did not like the way he had handled things up to that point. And they insisted that he get dressed. And they told him that he was under arrest and that they were going to take him to the station. Well, this was OJ Simpson. And he did get dressed. But he didn't go to the police station. He jumped in his Bentley and he sped away, and they chased after him. They didn't catch him, and he got away. The next day, he went to the Rose Bowl. But despite this, despite 89, what happened on January 1, 89, despite the Mercedes-Benz incident in 1985, she stayed. She stayed with him. And I'm not suggesting, and the evidence won't suggest, that every day of their marriage or their relationship was stormy, rocky, and filled with violence. That's not what we're suggesting here. But we are suggesting, and the evidence will show, that there was a cycle of violence. A cycle of violence, and the dominant theme in that relationship and in that cycle, and the ultimate objective was always control. Control. Well, after the 89 incident, after that night, their relationship changed somewhat. She was concerned. And the defendant was concerned. The defendant is a public man, and he was concerned about his public image. And in the public domain and in the public media, back in 1989, he was interviewed by Roy Firestone on ESPN. And during that interview, Mr. Firestone asked the defendant about that incident on the morning of January 1. And the defendant downplayed it. He minimized things, fluffed it over. And you'll hear and see that interview. And in that interview, the defendant said it was sort of a mutual wrestling match. She was wrong, he was wrong. Ta-da. No big deal. And that's what he said to the press, to the public. He minimized things. But you'll hear testimony from investigators employed with the DA's office, and they'll tell you about a day just a few months ago when they drilled a hole in the safe deposit box, Nicole's safe deposit box. And they'll tell you about the day that they recovered photographs taken of Nicole's injuries back in 1989. And I'll also tell you about the recovery of some letters the defendant wrote to Nicole after the 1989 beating. And you'll see those letters. They'll be here. You'll be able to read them. And you'll note that the account the defendant gave the press and the media and the public was not the same account he gave Nicole in those letters during that apology phase. The apology phase, the contrition phase, the phase he was going through. In the letter he wrote to Nicole, he apologized for hurting her. In the letter he wrote to Nicole, he admitted that he had lost control. And in the letter to Nicole, he said the same old thing you've been saying all along, and that is that I will do better. We can get through this. And that happens in bad relationships and in abusive relationships, doesn't it? Things get bad, bad things happen. The It's always somebody's fault. But nobody wants to take the blame. And in this situation, and the evidence will show that what the defendant did was he made these promises, sort of roped her back in. You know how it is. Bad relationship, I'll do better. Here's a gift. I'm sorry. And they just rope you back into it. And if you're the other person in Nicole's position, as she was, and this will be reflected in the evidence, she wanted to believe. She wanted to believe that her marriage could survive. She wanted to have hope, and he gave her hope for a while. Because this is a cycle. And so he beat her up on January 1, and he admitted to her privately in his letters that he was responsible, and he apologized, and he gave her things, and he tried to make it all better, and he gave her hope, and he roped her back in, and she stayed. She stayed because she had hope and because she wanted to believe that January 1, 1989 would be the last time that he would abuse her, physically or mentally. As you hear the evidence in this case, something
Y'all
really
look at
sad becomes
OJ.
very apparent.
Look how he looking. Look, y'all.
They met when she was 18, and he was almost 30.
Look at this man. Look at him.
And in 1992, they divorced. She was only 33 or so. And she died when she was almost 35.
Look. He's
Throughout
ready
her
to
adult
go.
life, throughout most of her adult life, her concept of marriage and a relationship was defined by this defendant.
Sure.
That was adult love. Her notion of adult love for 15 years was what this defendant gave her. And he abused her
Just you
throughout that
see him?
relationship. Well, as I said before,
OJ,
sometimes
stop.
you get roped in. People get roped in. Nicole got roped in by the defendant, and she stayed, and she stayed. And people stay in those situations, those abusive relationships, for years and years, until one or two things happen. One, they just can't take it anymore. Or two, until they just can't take it anymore and they wake up to reality. And finally, in 1992, Nicole woke up to the reality of her situation. And in January 1992, she moved from Rockingham. She left the defendant and she filed for divorce. Well, this did not sit well with this defendant, and this will be reflected in the evidence. He did not like this. He did not like the fact that Nicole was leaving his house, going somewhere else to live in her own house, away from him. There's that issue of control. How could he control her? She wasn't right there with him. And he didn't take it well, and he lost 20 to 25 pounds like that.
Ooh.
And almost on a daily basis, he would call her sisters, Dominique and Tanya and Denise. And he'd call her mother and her father, sometimes crying on the telephone. And he would call them, and he would whine to them, and he'd tell them how much he loved her and how he wanted her back. He'd use them to try and rope her back in. Well, she couldn't let him go, not completely. I mean, how could she? She'd been under his control for 15 or 16 years.
Wow.
And so she didn't go too far. She rented a house in Brentwood on Gretna Green. They
All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue a little bit later on because I'm on one. I want to hear I want to hopefully get the defense out too. But we have the hold on, guys. One sec. And listen, guys, while I'm looking this up, right, you notice that the prosecution is a black male and a white female, almost as if that they're trying to exhibit the black man as if he would know how he think. I would like to know how he was chosen, but almost like he would know because he's a black man himself. And then you have the white lady that is basically pleading for like Nicole. I could be just tripping, but I have a wild imagination as well. All right, so next we're going to hear from Marcia Rachel Clark. All right, and we're going to hear her out. I want to hear all of it. So she's coming up right after him. So we're going to allow him in the next, because the whole point of me stopping at an hour is that I don't, I'm creating a playlist of just the OJ Simpson trial anniversary. So I don't want the episodes to be too long. Okay. So we'll be back. I would say seriously in an hour. Yeah, in an hour. We're going to go ahead and allow, it's 13 more minutes left. And then we're going to dip a little into Marcia's presentation. And then we'll go from there. Okay. Just like how Johnny Depp's attorney was a young, pretty woman. Yep. Yeah, I strongly believe that that's why they got that, mirrored the black and white or whatever. So anyway, guys, just I'm going to finish eating my lunch and probably take like a 15-minute nap because I get the itis. I do. I need 2 naps. And so I'll be right back. Okay. And we're going to finish that off. All right, guys. See you in a little bit. Peace.